There we go. Okay, good morning. So let me pause our music and such real quick. Put the captions over here. Do all of our usual setup. All right, so before we get into our web design stuff, real quick, I need to share with you that we have a lockdown in transition today during flex after first period. So I don't know if that constitutes a business day necessarily, but it does mean that that's happening this flex today, and so we all need to be aware of what happens when we have a lockdown drill during passing periods or a lockdown in general during passing periods. Our instructions, you should be able, is the Zoom room open? Is it working? Okay, sweet. Our instructions as staff are to stand in the doorway while walking down, or while the instructions are given. I have to bring any student inside. So that means any classroom that you're nearby, even if it's not mine or one of your own, just go to the nearest classroom. The staff will help you in, and you stay in that classroom until the principals or whatever team gives us the all clear. So, like I said, your instructions are to go to the nearest classroom or office, anywhere that's behind a door in a lockdown situation. Just listen and trust the adults that are here, especially the badged ones, and remain inside until admin gives us the all clear, right? Stay out of sight, lock the doors, cover windows, stay away from those doors and windows, usual lockdown stuff that we're used to. If you need some names of the people in the lower commons, that's going to be the Miss Bunch and Miss Borachewski are behind that stage in the ASB kind of area on the way back towards the theater and towards the gym. Miss Bunch is on the left-hand side if you're going towards the back. Miss Borachewski is on the right if you're going towards the gyms. Miss Gullickson, or Mesh as she's also known, is nearest the student store. There's the main office. There's also Miss Rossi in the ASB garage, as well as the main Lyceum Theater, are all great options to head towards for lower commons lockdowns. In the upper commons, you can go to the kitchen, or you can go to Mr. Sherman's room, 3058, excuse me. It's towards the back, facing the bus drop-off. Head that direction if you need that while you're in the upper commons. Yeah, Grace, what's up?
What is it today?
This is during flex today. Yeah, flex transition.
Flex transition?
Yeah, so while passing period, flex, there's going to be a lockdown drill. Here's our exterior locations that you can meet at, that Sammamish or Skyline is aware of. We have our main building right here. We're like right here in the green one. Oh, sorry. We're like right here in the green one. But you can also go to the, I can't read these very well, but there's the Sammamish City Hall, the Community YMCA. What else does that say?
Queen,
Thank you. Cool. There's Mary Queen, and then there's the church right over here, as well as these neighborhoods and directions that you can also head. So just general information for the lockdown drill today that's going to happen during flex, especially during the passing period. So
Are we just gonna stay here during the passing period?
ideally, yes, but the ideal is you go to the nearest classroom, even if it's not your own. Okay, with that out of the way, that's what we've got going on during flex today. Let's talk a little bit about 5.1. So, hi, good morning. 5.1 is live in Canvas now. It's called CSS Miscellaneous Exercise. And if you go to our thread for the week by going to announcements and then P1 web design, we can close this up. Okay, we have our agenda for Tuesday the 5th, which links to 5.1 here as well. So if you want to click on that real quick, it will take you to the Canvas page for what we're working with. That is this right here. So you'll notice differently about this one, there is nothing to submit. And it's out of 0 points right now because I need to update the rubric. But instead of submitting it on here, this specific assignment 5.1, you'll just make your assignment 5.1 in the root folders we created and do the stuff that I'm asking. So how we would do that is first going into VS Code and then File, Open Folder. So yesterday you should have made a Unit 5 root. This is for first period web design. You should have made a Unit 5 root so that you have everything contained in one spot. Select that folder, and I'm just going to delete this because this was an example. Get rid of that. Okay, cool. The only thing that should be in your Unit 5 root right now is a simple index page that just has a little bit of paragraph placeholder of some kind that says, hey, this is my Unit 5 index page where all my links are going to end up. So to create a new set of files for your assignment, instead of making a whole new root, we're just going to make an HTML file and a style sheet inside of this Unit 5 main. So I'm going to click on my new folder or new file icon like this, and I'm going to use the full Canvas naming scheme. So first initial, last name, P1 5.1 dot HTML. Good morning, welcome in. .html, and then I'm gonna start this new 5.1 HTML file just like normal. HTML, click on HTML5, change the document title to be the Canvas scheme, so be Blakeney P1 5.1, and then I'm gonna add a little paragraph. I can just hit P and then enter. It's gonna automatically add my start and end tags. You can also, if you type the letter P, you can click on this little wrench, and that's gonna auto add the start and end tags. I'm just gonna put this is the assignment for 5.1, which I will get into here shortly. This is all just a little bit of setup before we actually start coding. We want to make sure that each of our assignments links back to our table of contents or links back to our main index homepage here. So we're gonna go here. Now that we have this B Blakeney P1 5.1.html, make sure you have that .html. We can now use an anchor to link that to our homepage. So same way that you can type the paragraph by just typing the letter and then hitting enter, you can type A and click on the wrench, and it will automatically pop up with an href that you can put inside the quotes here with an end tag. So this is just normal Anchor href. This is all stuff that we've been doing all semester. This is not anything new in the sense of the HTML. It's just the positioning inside of the folder and stuff like that that is a little bit different. So inside of my quotes, I'm going to add my hypertext reference, my href. For 5.1, I'm just going to put a little label for 5.1 here like that. And you'll know you've done it correctly, that when you go to run your index page, you have a link to 5.1. When you click on it, it takes you to whatever placeholder text you put inside of that. Space like this. So that's the gist of the setup. Oh, we also need a style sheet. Hold on. So remember, solid rectangle means you have the subfolder selected. Thin rectangle means you have the big folder selected. We want to click on the styles subfolder, and then you can either middle finger click and go new file, or you can click on the paper with the plus to make a style sheet for 5.1. So in order to keep our all of our style sheets straight here, we're gonna go 5.1 style.css. Something real simple so that we can tell which is which. The last step that you need to do, this is just normal setup like what we're used to. You need to link this 5.1 style sheet to your 5.1 HTML. This is where you need to be really careful and make sure that your HTML and your style sheet have the same number, the same kind of identifier, and make sure that it actually matches up with whatever assignment that you're working on. So we're gonna go into here. Go to the end of line 6 is where I like to put mine. You can put it anywhere in the head container, but I like to put mine after the meta and before the title. Okay. You can type LINK and you can click on the wrench, or you can hit enter. By clicking on the wrench or hitting enter, it automatically fills out this space like this. And we're going to start with our subfolder first inside of our href, style. It's going to pop up like this, styles / okay, 5.1 style.css. And the last thing you need to add, because they always need this, Zelda link tags at least, remember LINK. Zelda link tags always need a type equals text /CSS. Okay, so that style sheet is currently blank. We'll use it more here in just a second. But I'm going to close my Unit 5 index page here. And now the only two tabs that I have open are the HTML for 5.1 and the style sheet for 5.1, all contained within my Unit 5 folder here. So, let's talk about what 5.1 is. Just you press the letters TYPE and then equals, and then text /CSS. Just like this. So I'll give you a second to copy mine. Your 5.1 should look something like this. Okay, I'll look at it. It's the same type for it's gonna be inside every time. Yeah, you can remove that. Okay, cool. All right, so 5.1, there's a couple things that we have experimenting here that I briefly covered in the PowerPoint. I'll go over them in more detail with the actual setup today. The first thing I want to talk about is float. Now, What the contract is asking of you, what 5.1 is requiring, is a web page. This is our HTML file that we've just created, and a style sheet that has 3 bullet points required for the entirety of 5.1. The first one is a background image of Mr. B, which is me, if you weren't aware. And the teacher photo is file provided down below. So now that you have my ID picture for staff, use it wisely. Yeah. So since we have inside of our root folder for 5.1, let me go to that real quick. Being 5 web design. Oops, there we go. Unit 5, you should have an SRC subfolder for any type of extra files that are not style sheets or HTML. So I'm going to make a new folder within my SRC for IMG. And then from Canvas, I'm going to right click on this image because you'll need both of these images for float and for background image, but we're just going to focus on background image for now. Okay, you need to right click on my face and go save image as. I'm using Firefox, so yours might just go to your downloads, but with Firefox, it'll pop open the save window. I'm going to find my way to my root folder. So go first period web design, unit 5, SRC. You can see each step I'm making along the way, going down one level from the root every time, down these stairs, into IMG, and then I'm just going to leave it as the default file name. Click save, and you know it's worked if you go into SRC, and then it'll say SRC/image, and there will be my picture here. So just make sure that you're saving these images, both my my logo and my teacher photo, to your SRC folder. Specifically, you can do an images subfolder. You don't have to. I like just being more organized. You can put it all in SRC. That's fine. I just like having a little bit more image organization. So we're going to do that same process for the logo because we're going to need both of these. Right click on the B logo and save image as. By default, it's going to have that same path that you just took to get to wherever you saved the last file. So web design unit 5 SRC images. I'm just going to click save. And then we'll go into my VS Code, and you should be able to, if it did not update. Maybe it's still saving. Hold on. Did I not click save? Oh, there it goes. Okay, I was just thinking about it. All right, so now we also have my PNG logo as well as my background image here. So the first step on 5.1 to get background image and the logo, actually, we skipped a little bit to step 3. But the first step for 5.1 is you need to save my teacher picture to your SRC folder. So now what we're going to do is talk about CSS background image in more detail. So we have our image saved locally to our device or to our root folder, our major root folder. All right. I'm going to go away from the HTML because background image is entirely CSS based. You can set this 2 separate ways because remember the entirety of the HTML is contained, or the entirety of the visible web page is contained within the body, but the entirety of the website, the entire recipe, is contained within the HTML tags. This is a little bit too much information. I just want the image to take up the background of my body section. So that section is my selector for my CSS. So you go in your 5.1 style, BODY, curly bracket, enter. We're going to write a rule for the entirety of the body container on our 5.1. The CSS background image, these are background sizes. So let me go to our agenda. I think I put it in here. I did. So if you go to the weekly thread for Tuesday, there is a link right here, the second link for CSS background image. It's going to take you to the W3 schools. Just kidding, that's background size. I definitely put the wrong link in there. I will fix that shortly. So if we go to just Google CSS background image and go to the W3 schools. There we go, background image property. So pretend that this link takes you here. We need that URL and then the parentheses and the quotes, and then whatever our file path is, whether that's just loose inside of our root folder or specifically in some subfolders. You need the URL and stuff like that, all for the body. So to do that, we're going to go into back into our CSS for 5.1, background-image. There's a whole bunch of different options. We're not using all that. We are just looking for the letters URL. And then it'll pop up with this little cube with the parentheses. You can also just type or hit one parenthesis, shift 9, and it will pop up like that. You also need to add a quote inside of the parentheses in order for everything to work inside of our universal resource locator. So your body tag should look like this. I'll give you guys a second to copy that down, and then we'll start adding the relative path inside of the quotes here in just a second. Okay. Are we all good? Are we ready to move forward? Good deal. So if you go back to the PowerPoint, which I did not link in the agenda, but it is available in our module for this unit. If we go to it really does not like going to the modules. Anyway, the PowerPoint's available. It talks about that ... Here we go. Now it just had slowed. There's the Unit 5 Part 1 miscellaneous CSS as it relates to 5.1 the Miss CSS exercise. So with inside the quotes, remember our style sheet cannot look past the subfolder that it's contained in. Our style sheet can only see, as of right now at least, can only see this file in this folder. This is the top of the staircase. There's a door that it can't see through. By way of going inside the quotes and adding 2 dots and a slash, that opens the door at the top of the staircase, allowing us to look into the entirety of our root folder here. You see now by adding this ... inside of our URL, I can access all of the files contained within my Unit 5 root. So what I'll do next is do the relative path. Remember the path not related to my entire C drive for my computer specifically, but for my root folder as it's set up. We're going to go src image, and then thumbnail image 002 is the default file name for my school picture. That's this one right here. We're just going to click on that thumbnail image to .png, Control S. So your background image, remember, is going to be typically set for the entirety of the body. If you wanted to take up the background of your site instead of the background of something like a div or an H1 or whatever, you need the property of background image, a URL with parentheses and a quotes, then ... and then the file path. It's a lot of setup, but it's just so that you can give your computer a very specific quest for a very specific file. So now if I go to run my 5.1.html, the only thing that's on there is a paragraph element. I'm going to run this real quick using Chrome. You can see that it's going to put my face all over the available viewport space here. You can see when I resize my window, this is the text from that placeholder. It's going to be all over the joint, and that's not what our client is looking for. As pretty as this character is, as this person is, that's not exactly what the client's asking for. The client, if we go back to the 5.1, just says a background image of Mr. B. So not specifically this many. This is background images of Mr. B. If you go into the either the link on the Canvas page for 5.1 or this link inside of the agenda, which I need to update the name of, there is another property that we can add to our body tag called CSS background size. So this is going to change the way that our background image is going to behave as it pertains to our body tag. So we have our, imagine this says background image because it's a URL with a mountain.jpg. That's a photographic file extension. There's 2 more that we can add here called background repeat and background size. You guys in the back, come on. Okay, background size is the first thing we're going to focus on. I'm going to go background dash size. It's this one right here. You can click on the wrench. There's 2 main options. These yellow ones are going to be the most responsive depending on your viewport size. I ignore a lot of these different because it's overwhelming for me. You can have contain or you can have cover. This is what contain looks like. Oh, sorry, let me refresh. This is what contain looks like. This is way too many Mr. B's. It's like a beehive, in fact. That's too much. That is not at all what our client's looking for. So contain is going to make from point of origin down to the bottom. It's going to take up as much of the space possible. which is not what we're looking for. So contain works, but cover typically works the best. It's going to take the one file and make it take up all of the available screen space. And it's going to scale depending on how big your viewport is. Since this is a vertical portrait, there's not a lot happening on the vertical end, but on the horizontal end, it does make it scale up or down pretty well. Yeah, Samantha.
So what's the difference between cover and 100%?
I don't know, actually. Let's try 100%. I have not used 100% before. Let's see. It doesn't look like visibly there's much. Let me see if it. Yeah, no, it's.
No, wait, go back
There,
to.
yeah, there's a little bit of leftover. We'll get to that. That's background repeat. Yeah, so you can see there's a little bit of a mariner's hat peeking out at the bottom here. That's going to be something. If I set this back to, we want it to be, I can't remember if it was cover or contain.
Cover.
I already forgot. Okay, it's cover. It looks exactly the same. So there's also background repeat. There's a couple different options. Most of the time, I'm using no repeat to avoid these sneaky little extra mariner's hats coming into our CSS background image here. So to do that, you go background dash repeat like this. Again, there's a whole load of options. You can have it repeat on the x-axis, the east-west, right? Yeah, east-west. Or you can have it repeat on the y-axis, the north-south. We are just going to set it to no dash repeat because we don't want it to repeat. So when you're doing this, this is an example of a client wanting something specific that is not exactly going to work the best. Because the client only wants one photo, you can see there's some extra white space at the bottom here. Sometimes the client wants a specific thing that does not always work out the best way. However, this is what they're asking for. Okay. So as long as you have just a single image, usually it's going to be a landscape or something that's going to take up a more rectangular screen a little bit better. As long as you have these main ideas, you have your background image itself, you have your background size set to cover or contain, and then the background repeat, either to no repeat or repeating on an X or a Y axis. These are the three basic components of setting a background image in your CSS. You can also apply this background image idea instead of to the body to another block level element. So if I add a div real quick, so I type div dot box, okay, just gonna hit enter. That's my div class of box. I'm gonna leave it blank for now. I'm gonna add a little bit of CSS so you can see that div dot box. You don't have to do this. This is for example's sake. Okay, and I'm gonna add a width, not a viewport. I'm gonna go 100 pixels by height. Since this is a vertical image, a height of, let's go 300 pixels. All right. So if we go back to our output, now we have this div box, this 100 by 300 div box. I can change my selector here from body, or I can actually, instead, I'm going to just toggle this off real quick. Control question mark to toggle that. Okay, there goes our background image. Oh my goodness. Okay, I can copy and paste all this, copy that, and paste it onto my div box. And it should, once I refresh, it should contain the image to whatever div box we're working with. You can see it's going to go off the point of origin. So it's going to have a little bit of cutoff, create this kind of window effect here. But you can also assign a background image. All of this is a copy and paste from the body to elements that are individual on your page, like list items, like div boxes if you're creating some kind of gallery, or you want to make maybe an anchor, have a picture instead of a clickable link, whatever. There's lots of options. You can also apply background image, let me go back here, to your to text-based elements as well as the body. But most of the time you're going to be using it in the body like this. So if you've been following along, your website should look something like this. And I'll help you get to this point by the end of today. But that's the first part of what 5.1 is looking for. So the next part is a list of your own quotes. So you can either quote yourself, or you can make up, or you can choose a famous person's quotes that are numbered by Roman numerals instead of by the regular number or point like in unordered or ordered list. So before we do any of that though, we need an actual ordered or unordered list to work with. So I'm going to take off this div box because I don't actually need it. Get rid of all that. Control S. Let's make a list. So UL, hit enter, enter again. There's our container already built up. LI. We're going to keep list items in a row, but keep our list like containers in a vertical because they contain the items themselves. So this is going to be, I don't know, give me some quotes. What are some, I can't think of any. Anybody got any examples? Huh?
To be or not to be, but William.
Okay, to be or not to be. William Shakespeare. What else you got? I know you guys got.
Do it.
Okay. Is that Nike? Just is that who quotes it?
Dude, hey, Vsauce.
Hey Vsauce, Michael here. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey Vsauce, Michael here. And that's from Vsauce, Michael. Okay.
Any code, okay.
Any quote's fine as long as it's school appropriate, because remember I will be seeing it. And then we'll go one more. We'll do the just do it. Do it by Nike themselves. You need at least 5, but I'm gonna do 3 for time's sake. So there we are. We have our massive Mr. B overlooking our list of quotes here, but they're default to the bullet points, the unordered list bullet points. You can use CSS to change the list style type. If you click on this link here, there's a couple different options. Man, my thing's really taking a while to load.
Yeah, for some reason the Wi-Fi has been super slow lately and the cool VPN fixed it, which is really annoying.
It might be all the VPNs you guys are putting on Minecraft. Okay.
Did you speed up the server?
So list style type is going to be our property that's going to change the way that your list style appears. So you have the default of circle, which is going to be like the unordered list default, except it's see-through. It's got a stroke, but no fill if you've taken graphic design. It's also square, pretty self-explanatory, as well as upper Roman numerals. That might be the one that our character is looking for. Or lower alphabet. So it's going to go A through Z. And then once you hit Z, it's going to turn into AA, BB, all that type of stuff. Okay, so based off of this, if my client wants Roman numerals, let me get out of here. If my client wants Roman numerals, how am I going to do that?
Setting it to Roman numeral.
Okay, setting what to Roman numerals?
The list.
The list itself?
Yeah.
Okay, let's try the list itself. So we're gonna go into our CSS.
EOL.
I did a UL. So depending on whichever list you did, I did a UL. We're gonna set what's the property? If we go back here,
Like list style.
list dash style dash type is gonna be your property. Oops, let's close that.
Apparently just list dash style of the works.
List dash style. I'm gonna go list style type for CSS. So there's a whole bunch of different options that we can work with. And you have upper Roman, lower Roman. We're gonna do upper Roman like this. And that's gonna change our list items to be Roman numerals to go 1, 2, 3. So if I add 2 more quotes, if anyone wants to give me 2 more quotes, we're gonna be lazy. Quote 4. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Quote 4. And then LI enter. Quote 5. It's going to continue with Roman numerals all the way up to however many list items you have. You might be noticing though, this is kind of hard to see. The black on the dark blue background is not the easiest to view. So what we're going to do to change that, because it is important that your users can see everything that's on your actual page, I'm going to go into the body and just change the color to white. The same way that setting the background image and stuff affects the entirety of the website in the container. If you set a color to the body, that's going to affect all the text-based elements on the page so that it becomes just a little bit easier to see. White's just going to contrast with the darker colors a little bit better so that it's visible for your viewer. Okay, let's look at the third and final requirement. This is going to be image float. You're going to need to use my logo, and we're going to talk a little bit about CSS float here. So the last and final thing before I let you guys experiment with this a little bit, figure it out. We have a PNG here. We have a transparent PNG that the client wants to be floated to the right-hand side of the screen. So There's this quick video I'll have us watch that explains float in a better way, in a quicker way that I can, that you also have access to in the future. Thing, let me now that we're recording or my mic is back on, the biggest thing that I want you guys to keep in mind with float is that float is going to remove anything you put you set to float from the document flow, kind of like position absolute, so things are going to move around it or ignore it in a sense. And I'll give you an example of how that works here in just a second. So we have this image. Remember, images are excuse me, I can't talk. Images are inline level elements. So they're not going to reserve any space for themselves. They're only going to take up the available space that they need. So if I type my IMG and then I have my SRC and then SRC again, because this is relevant to my root folder now. Then we're going to go into images and then the PNG asset number 4. Alt text is Blakeney logo. By default, just with no styling, no CSS, no whatever, the image is just going to be next in order. You can see it's right underneath the list. If I go right click and inspect, take my little magnifying glass right here. I remember the magnifying glass is right there. You can see that the image, it's taking up all of this space right at the bottom of the list items for the quotes here. If I set, bless you, if I set this image to a property of float, it's going to, first of all, float to whichever direction I've assigned it, kind of like pinning it or kind of like position offset relative. So let's do that first. I'm going to go into here, add a class to my image by clicking right after the G, class equals float, not float, float image, Control S, go to my style sheet. And then we're going to go dot float image, curly bracket, set the float is the property. And then you can set it to a variety of different options. As you can see, there's a whole bunch. You can do the end of an inline, the start of an inline, left, none is the default, right? You can inherit it, whatever. This client wants the float to be set to right, just like this. So we go back to Canvas, floated to the right-hand side of the screen. Now you can think about this as this is kind of, if our website, if we're looking down at a pool of water, we're looking down at some kind of situation like this element is floating on top of it, ignored by whatever else is contained within the pool or the puddle of water. So once I refresh here, Control S, my logo is going to be attached to the right-hand side of the screen. So if I resize my viewport, you can see it's going to stay consistently attached to that right-hand side as best it can. It's also another thing that's useful about float is it's going to make other elements wrap around it. That's part of the cool part about why float is useful. So if we have some text, if we go back to our HTML, go underneath the image, and we add a paragraph like the guy did in the video, we go lorem, just hitting enter to automatically fill out like this. Okay, I've already written that line, Control C. I'm just going to add a couple bits of filler text, Control V, Control V, Control V, Control V. We'll go 5 lines, 5 big long lines. There we go. So you can see because my image is set to float, it's reserving its space depending on how big the viewport is. The other elements are going to flex around it. So it's a really easy way to make adjustable pages that maintain your design choices like proximity and alignment without compromising the whole layout of your pages. So if I made my images a little bit large, I'm gonna actually tone it down to about 50%, make it about half the size. So I'm just gonna go width equals 50% in my HTML real quick. You don't have to do this part. But if we go back to the output, you can see how the wrapping happens in action. If I move my viewport over to the side, those paragraph elements, even though they're block level and reserve the entire row to themselves, because this image has a class of float, it's going to keep pushing those things to wrap around it so that it maintains its float position as well as its scale. So float's really cool. Float is really useful. And if you've been following along with me so far, your page should look something like this, which are the 3 requirements that the client is asking for. So what I have today is to make sure everybody's finished up with 5.1. We're going to expand on this some more later this week with 5.2. But if your page is looking like this and it's saved within your root folder, you have nothing to submit today. I'll be checking it to make sure or answering any questions you might have. If not, we will get you in a position where everything is all good. And that will be our day today. Skylar, you got a question?
Can I look at the style sheet for you?
Like this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then Selena, you got a question?
Oh, I was just asking, can I look at, there any of, or can I just have image and then?
You can have it just image. I just like to be specific. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions before I wander and help y'all? Are we all good? Okay. If you're bored, you can decorate your HTML page, your index page, put something cool on it, try something new from W3 Schools. Just experiment with this page. I don't have anything on mine right now because we just started. You can put any drawings, you can write notes, you can do all types of stuff on that index page. Yeah, Gabe. For this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. You won't be able to see it all. Okay, and again, remember guys, I'm gonna be helping y'all as I wander because we still have a 15-minute period here. Okay, any questions for the good of the order before I help you guys with your specific stuff? No? Okay, perfect. I'm gonna close up the Zoom room here. We got a minute left on the meeting. Thank you guys for listening. I will help you get all good. And that will be our Tuesday.